For everybody here and all of our family online and our Desert Life family at Darwin Life who's joining us, I want to look at a scripture from the book of Ezekiel. Now, we're going to open something that's 3,000 years old. So when you open a piece of literature that's 3,000 years old, you have to consider the possibility that the words back then meant something different than the words do now, because words don't matter. How we picture words working matters. And so in the ancient prophetic tradition, when ancient prophets used a word, they had a word to describe when somebody chooses to live in such a way that unravels their life to despair and disrepair. And that word was death. They also had a word to use when people choose to live inside God's ways, and it keeps their life heading towards wholeness, abundance, and peace. And that word was life. So the words life and death in the Old Testament were not about going to heaven, nor going to hell, nor was it about literal life and death. It was presented as a choice. Life or death. Choose life that you might live. Choose to be in the light as he is in the light. And the reason I bring that up is he's going to use those words life and death that way. And I don't want anybody thinking, oh, he's talking about literal death or going to heaven or hell. It's not talking about any of that. It's talking about how we choose to live here. Now, this guy, Ezekiel, is writing to encourage some Jewish slaves. So there's these Jewish people, and they're enslaved in a country called Babylon under the rule of a guy named Nebuchadnezzar. And he's trying to encourage them, but he does so by a little bit of slapping them around for a second. Here's what he does in Ezekiel 18, verse 1. Here it is. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, what do you people mean by quoting this proverb about the land of Israel? The parrots eat sour grapes, and now it's the children's teeth that are set on edge. As surely as I live, declares the Lord, I don't want you ever quoting this proverb in Israel. The father eats sour grapes, and now it's my children that are set on edge. The mom eats sour grapes, and now it's the children's teeth that are set on edge. The parent eats sour grapes, and now it's the children's teeth that are set on edge. And God says, I don't want to hear that out of your mouth one more second, which leads to a couple questions. One, what does this proverb even mean? And two, why is God so apparently ticked off about it? All right, so to understand this, we have to understand a brief history of Israel. So if you've ever looked at the Old Testament, like, I don't understand all this, right? All right, here it goes. Here is the entire, you're going to have to pay very close attention because for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to talk as fast as Ben TV, all right? So, ready? This is the entire history of Israel in 2 minutes. Pay very close attention, and you'll understand the entire Old Testament. Ready? There was a guy named Abraham who had a son named Isaac, who had a son named Jacob, who had 12 children. 11 of his 12 children sold one of their brothers into slavery in Egypt, only to later need him to save their sorry behinds from a famine that hit the place that they were living. And instead of killing them for selling them into slavery, he took compassion on them, forgave them, and gave them a piece of land in Egypt. And then they got together in Egypt, and they started procreating. And they started having babies, and I mean a lot of babies. So there was babies and 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 babies, to the fact that they overpopulated Egypt. So the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, did the only reasonable thing he knew to do, which was to put these people in slavery. 430 years later, God raises up a redeemer to get them out of slavery into freedom through 10 plagues, the Red Sea, and all this. And he gives them a mandate. He says, I want you to establish a nation that will show the whole world what it looks like if I was in charge. And remember, I'm a slave liberator who stands up for the poor and the afflicted. This, in short, turned out terribly. By the third king, a guy named Solomon, the book of Kings says, and this is the account of the slave labor that Solomon forced to build the temple to the Lord. So if you're paying attention, a guy that comes from a lineage of freed slaves is now forcing slaves to build the temple to honor the God who frees the slaves. He failed to see the irony in that. This group of people end up back in slavery in a place called Babylon. And who do they blame for their slavery? They blame Solomon. Why? Because it was his policies that led them back there. And they blame him. So much so that they wiped his name from the historical record for over 400 years, simply referring to him as David's son. Why? Because that's how you get people to forget about somebody. You don't refer to them by their name, just David's son. This is why if you've ever been through a divorce, you would never call your ex by their name. You refer to them as my ex or the children's father, right? That's how that works. And it was like David's son, David's son, David's son. So the prophets to Babylon show up and they say, take heart, For God will bring a new Son of David who will maintain justice and righteousness to the poor. Fast forward to Jesus. Jesus was called a lot of things. Jesus Christ, Jesus our Savior, Jesus our Lord, Rabbi Jesus, Jesus the carpenter, Jesus a guy that liked fishing. But the poor and the afflicted had one name for him, Jesus, Son of David. Have mercy on me. In other words, are you the new Son of David that the prophets of old talked about? Because if you're that guy, that means you're here for the poor. Newsflash, I'm poor, which means you're here for me. The entire Old Testament in 2 minutes. So this group of people are blaming Solomon for why they are the way they are. Now, if you got lost in all that, come back right now. Here's what's going on in that passage. Ready? The current generation is blaming the previous generation for why they are the way they are. Because that's not relevant at all, is it? We've never seen that. We've never seen someone acting destructively and blaming their parents for that. I'm 46. I've been a pastor for years, traveled the world for 20 years. Ben and Dan been pastors for years, and we enjoy it. We do. The pastors here love being a pastor. There's parts of it we don't like. Don't judge us for that, and don't hate us for that. There's parts of your job you don't like, right? There's parts of your calling that is a struggle. That's just part of it. For instance, we don't want to have boring theological discussions about singular verses in Leviticus. We just really don't want to do that, because if you'd rather get Leviticus right than get Jesus right, I'll speak for all of us, you're annoying. That's first. Second, we don't enjoy correcting or challenging people to change their behavior. It's actually a little exhausting. It's not my favorite thing to do for sure, but it's a necessary part of the job. And the number of times it goes something like this. Sir, cut it out, bro. Seriously, you got to sort your stuff out. You're fixing to lose everything that's important to you. You need to sort that out. And the guy says, I know, but if you knew what my dad was like, you would understand why I am the way I am. Or, ma'am, seriously, you got to sort it out. You're critical, cantankerous, jealous, possessive, and quite frankly, horrible. We don't want to be the one to tell you this, but your husband is secretly praying for a comet to come to earth to bring him sweet relief from you. She says, I know. But if you understood what my mom was like, you'd understand why I am the way I am. My mom was jealous, possessive, critical, cantankerous, and horrible, so I'm jealous, possessive, critical, cantankerous, and horrible. My dad was abusive, that's why I'm abusive. My dad was a drunk, that's why I'm a drunk. My mom was a drunk, that's why I'm a drunk. My mom was a manipulator. That's why I'm a manipulator. My parents ate sour grapes, and that's why my teeth are set on edge. If you knew what my parents were like, you would understand me. Here's the problem. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology, which means I'm academically qualified to sort your head out. So be careful what you say to me. Here's the problem. I can tell you why you are the way you are. I can. If you're honest, you sit with me for a few minutes, answer my questions honestly, I can see why you are the way you are. That's the easiest part of the job. Seeing why you are the way you are, simple. Ray Charles can see why you are the way you are. Listen, yeah, of course. Yeah, okay, so your dad was abusive, so you're abusive. Sure, yeah. So, your mom was horrible, so you're horrible. Yep. And even if I give her the benefit of the doubt, if only 20% of what you're telling me about your mom is true, I get it. She was horrible, you're horrible. He was horrible, you're horrible. Here's the problem. You're 40. And at what point can you be empowered to draw a line in the sand and say, I don't have to perpetuate that level of death into perpetuity. I can empower my life to choose a different path. Ezekiel is saying, it in no way empowers you to blame somebody else for why you are the way you are. It is not your parents' fault for why you are the way you are, unless you're 8. If you're 8, it's 100% their fault. If you're 8 and a jerk, it's because your parents let you act that way. Absolutely their fault. But if you're 28, at some point you got to draw a line in the sand and change that family tree, or you might end up 48 in the same situation, or worse, 68. And you get to the end of your life wondering, who's ever going to change our life? And you might be thinking, Shane, you understand, man. Like, I hear you, bro. You understand. My family had issues. Really? Did they? Your family had issues? Everybody's family has issues. Let me ask you a question about your family. Did your family have a man and a woman trying to coexist? Right? Then there's going to be issues, right? Why? Because marriage is flipping hard, right? And complex and difficult and evidently a blessing. I don't know. But it's evident. Like marriage is so complex, the Bible can't even agree on what to say about it, right? Say, Shane, what's the Bible say about marriage? Depends on who you read. Solomon was like, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. Rock. Paul was like, he who marries does not sin, but he signed up for a life of pain. What's the Bible say about marriage? Well, I don't know. Solomon was like, marriage, let's do it. A lot. Paul was like, good God, please make that your last choice. Why? Because marriage is difficult. Like, look, even if you marry someone who's basically good-hearted and basically mentally healthy, like basically, still difficult because of preference. Now, if you marry a psychopath, what do you mean? But assuming you married someone who's basically good-hearted, basically mentally healthy, there's still issues because of preference. And I mean preference at a most basic level. Women prefer different things than men. Men prefer different things than women. And then they start calling their preferences right or wrong. And that's the whole nother thing, right? But even at a most base thing, like women prefer nice smells. They do. Perfume, candles, flowers. Women love that stuff. You hand any woman in here, you hand her a bouquet of flowers, she'd look at it, and then what would she do? Right? You hand a man a bouquet of flowers. All he smells is $70. That's what that costs. Right? We don't care about his stuff. Right? Women like candles. You go to a big enough mall, there's a shop that makes a living selling wax. Their whole thing, they sell wax. And they stay in business. How? How does a shop pay top-end rent and then stay in business and your thing is selling wax? How? Women. Women love it. You go by that shop, there's always two women in there sniffing something, right? Oh, that's beautiful. That's one. Oh, that's real nice there. That'll accent the living room nicely. Right? You'll never see two men doing that. Imagine going by that shop and two men. Hey, Billy, check that out, man. That's that new white lilac scent. That is something special. No way. No way. Why? Because men prefer stinky things. There's nothing funnier to a group of men than when something stinky happens. We think that's hilarious. Women think that's disgusting. And these people trying to live together? And it goes further than that. It's actually in the code of a man. It's not just stinky things happening. We actually secretly enjoy smelling. Look. If this, and it's the code of a man. Look. Even if you train a man to when he finishes work to put his clothes in the dirty clothes hamper, right? So he takes off his clothes and puts it in a little basket that's there. Even if you train him to do that. Now, he won't do this if you're watching, but if he's not watching, I promise you, every man in this room's done this. He takes off his clothes, and for some reason, men always leave their socks to last. I don't understand that because there's nothing more unattractive than a naked man in socks. Seriously, right? But they leave their socks to last. They take their work socks, the socks they wore all day, take the socks off, and if you watch them just before they'll go, right? It's like we proved we worked, right? And I promise you, if those socks don't smell bad enough, we'll be like, I think I can wear this one more day. I think I did, right? It's true. It's true. Absolutely true. You're playing rugby. You're bloody, sweaty, nasty, stinky. Got to go to a business meeting. You shower. You take your bloody, sweaty, nasty clothes, put them in a plastic bag, tie them up, put them in the boot of your car. 3 months later, you're looking for something in the boot of the car, and you see a bag with known stinky things in it. Every man knows what must happen. They're already feeling it right now. They're like, you got to smell that, bro. Right? It's true. If there's a bag and there's known stinky things in it, you're going to open that bag just a little bit, and you're going to, and it goes like this. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. And then there's something further than that with men. It's called a courtesy sniff. Yep. Everybody knows what that one is, right? So courtesy sniff is if you got 3 mates standing there, right, and you have a bag of known stinky things, you have to pass it. They all owe you. And you see men do this all the time. It's known, no one's surprised. Known stinky stuff, and they'll pass it around. This is how it goes. Oh, that's a good, Jim, that's a good one, right? But here's the problem. Now I owe them when they have, and that's why if you're ever in Alice Springs and there's 4 guys in the same car and they're stuck at a red light, right? And 3 of them have their head out the window and the 4th guy's laughing. he just cashed in on his courtesy sniff. These people supposed to live together? Of course there's issues. You might be thinking, oh, Shane, you understand my dad had issues. Your dad had issues? Really? Yeah, everybody's dad has issues. My dad has issues. Look, my dad, let me be clear, is not a good man. He's a great man. My dad was up at 4:30 this morning praying for this church meeting. And he didn't tell me. I just know because that's where he is every morning at 4:30. It's one of these old, special forces guys from Vietnam, He gets up real early, ridiculous sort of stuff, And he's been getting up earlier my whole life. When I was a kid, it was 5:45. Now he gets up at 4:15, and he prays at 4:30. I was talking to him the other day. He said, Shane, you know what I'm thinking about doing? I'm thinking about getting up at 4 and starting to pray at 4:15. I was like, Dad, if you live 10 more years, you're going to need to eat breakfast the night before. This is getting ridiculous. But my dad had issues, He liked to scare us. And I'm not talking about a mild boo. I'm talking terrify 6-year-olds, right? So I'll give you an example. So I used to always fall asleep. My mom would wake me up, I'd fall back asleep, right? Never been a morning person. And so my dad decides I'm going to break his habit of falling back asleep on the bed. So his idea to do this was he hid under my bed. Right? He didn't tell anybody. My mom would have never allowed that. He hid under my bed, right? He's like the special forces guy that can fit into the wall and you can't see. Anyway, so he's there and I'm just about to fall back asleep and he reaches out and grabs my feet, right? Your dad had issues. My dad liked to embarrass us. Thought it was hilarious. One time he was dropping me off at junior high Bible camp. It's a thing we do in America. Don't worry if you're not. So he's picture this: 114 7th graders on 2 57-passenger American-sized school buses. Dad pulls up. He says, Shane, I love you. I believe in you. I'm going to pray every day God touches your life at camp. I'm like, thanks, Dad. Love you too. See you later. He said, hang on. Where's my kiss? I was like, Dad, please not here. My God, there's 100 of my friends here. Please. Oh, all right, go ahead. So I get out and I hand the bus driver the thing. And anyway, I get to the next to last row of the bus and we're fixing to leave. Until to my horror, I look up and my dad had got on the bus. It was 104 degrees. He's wearing shorts. He pulled them up to here. He pulled his socks up to here. And he got on the bus with a limp. And he grabbed the microphone of the bus. And he said, excuse me, everybody. This bus isn't leaving until my Shaney Waney comes up here and gives me a kiss. And the whole bus starts chanting, kiss him, kiss him. Everybody's dad has issues. The question isn't whose family has issues. The question is, are we doomed to perpetuate death or are we empowered to perpetuate life? That's the question. And here's the question we can never ask. We should never ask. Is it normal? It's not a good question. Here's why. What we think is normal is seared into our brain before the age of 8. Whatever we think normal is how we were raised before the age of 8. And let me be clear, we had nothing to do with that. It's just the habits our family of origin taught us. The issue is never what's normal. Is what I think is normal, does it belong to death or life? And can I be empowered to eradicate death or empowered to perpetuate darkness? That's the question. This is why, if you remember your first slumber party with your friends, and you went, let's say you come from a calm household, right? And you go spend the night at your friend, and they're all yellers, right? And you're thinking, man, these people are weird. They yell at everything, but you realize they think you're weird. If they came to your house, they're like, do y'all not care about anything? Everybody's so quiet and peaceful and talk it through. The question isn't what is normal. The question is what I think is normal, is that belonging to death or life? And can I eradicate death and perpetuate life? That's the question. And Ezekiel's like, it doesn't do you any good to blame them. It does you every good to draw a line in the sand and choose to perpetuate life and eradicate death, to be the hero of your family tree. This is next slide. This is verse 4. This is his next thought. For every living soul belongs to me. The parent as well as the child. Both alike belong to me. But the one who sins is the one that will die. In other words, is there anybody in the world that doesn't belong to God? No. Are they living in God's world? Are they held together by God's name? Is God steadily reaching out? Yeah. You see, in the ancient Jewish world, they had two beliefs that we do not have today. We do not have this today at all, but it's important because they did. The two beliefs are, they thought God was for certain people and not for others. So if you were a Jew, God was for you. If you weren't, God was against you. If your life was going well, God was obviously for you. If you were struggling, God was obviously against you. And especially if something horrible was happening, like let's say you were born blind, they would ask questions like, who sinned in this guy's past that God is getting his punishment on this guy now? Right? They thought that way. Now, we realize that's ridiculous, but they thought it was possible for God to still be punishing somebody for their great-grandfather's mistakes. Okay? Now, we realize that's ridiculous, but they thought that. The second thing they thought is that they thought that if your life was struggling, it's because God was against you, not that you had actually chosen death, right? And so what's happening in this passage is Ezekiel saying, God's not against people. God's for everybody living, and God is especially not celebratory when somebody chooses death and then dies. That is not God at all. God is not judging somebody because of the sins of their great-grandfather who's been dead 100 years. That's ridiculous. So here's what he does. Over the next 17 verses, he presents this case. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to explain it. Here's what he says. Suppose there's a guy, and he's righteous, and then he has a son who's wicked. And then he has a son who's righteous. So if you're following along, you've got a righteous granddad, a wicked son, and then a righteous grandson. So you got 3 generations. And then he asked this brilliant question. Who inherits what from who? Does the righteous grandson inherit the righteousness of his grandfather, or does he pay for the sins of his wicked father? Or does the wicked father inherit the righteousness of the righteous father, or does he pay for his own wickedness? Or does that wickedness go back to that guy? Or how does this generational judgment thing work? And the answer was better than anybody thought. He said, actually, the good news is this. Every generation stands on their own 2 feet before God. And if you choose life, you perpetuate life. If you choose death, you get death. It has nothing to do with God hurting you because of somebody else. That is despair and despondence, and it's disempowering to blame. And here's what he says. He brings language to this. Check this out. This is from verse 17 to the end of the passage. Check this. He withholds his hand from mistreating the poor and takes no interest or profit from them. He keeps my laws and follows my decrees. That's talking about the righteous grandson. He will not die for his father's sin. This guy does not die for his father's sin. He'll live and not die. But his father, keep going, will die for his own sin because he practiced extortion, robbed his brother, did what was wrong amongst the people. Yet you ask, why does the son not share the guilt of the father? Why would they ask that? Because that's what they were taught their whole life. The son shares the guilt of the father. Well, since the son has done what is just and right and been careful to keep my decrees, he'll live and not die. The one who sins is the one that will die. The ones that's choosing outside of God's ways are the ones that enter death. The child will not share the guilt of the parent, nor will the parent share the guilt of the child. Let's stop and think about that for a second. If you're here and you know your parents were horrible, and you've wondered your whole life, I wonder if I'm cursed or something because of my parents. I wonder if God thinks less of me. The answer is absolutely not. The son does not share the guilt of the parent, nor does the parent share the guilt of the child. Every generation stands on their own 2 feet before God. The righteousness of the righteous man will be credited to them, the wickedness of the wicked. In other words, you're responsible for you. You are responsible for you. But if a wicked person, so if a wicked person turns from their sins and they committed it and keeps my decrees and does what is just and right, that person will live and not die. In other words, I love this wisdom. If you're on the road to death, darkness, and decrease, you have one choice. Turn around and head back towards life, light, and increase. And no matter how far down the road of death you get, you're one decision away from changing everything back to light and life. You might be thinking, no, you understand, my family has acted like this for 7 generations. Okay, sorry, but no matter how far down that road, you can be the hero of that whole family tree and turn it around in one moment. You could do it. None of the offenses they've committed will be remembered. Because of the righteous things they've done, they'll live. Do I take pleasure in the death of the wicked? In other words, you people think I love it when people destroy themselves? No. I'm the one warning them to change lanes, get off the road, do something. Rather, am I not pleased when they turn from their ways and live? And also, if a righteous person turns from their righteousness and commits sin and does the same detestable things the wicked person does, will they live? Well, no, none of the righteous things will be. Like, in other words, if you're on the road to death, turn around. However, and this is such wisdom, if you're on the road to life, keep going. Ezekiel makes this brilliant point, and that is this: good decisions do not work like savings accounts. In other words, your family might have 7 generations of good decisions, and all it takes is 1 generation to turn the thing back this way. And individually, that's true. If you make 20 years of good decisions, you don't then get 20 years of terrible decisions before you get back to even. If you got the best marriage in the room, and I hope you do, it doesn't matter how good that marriage is 1 decision away from being wobbly. In other words, if you're on the road to death, turn around. But if you're on the road to life, keep going every single day. Because of the unfaithfulness, they're guilty. Because of the sins they've committed, they'll die. Yet you say the way of the Lord's not just? Hear, O Israel, is it my way or your way that's not fair? Here's your way, ready? God is punishing someone severely for the sins of somebody they've never met. Or every generation stands on their own 2 feet before God. You tell me which one's more fair. If a righteous person turns to the righteous, commits sin, they'll die. Because the sins they'll committed, they'll die. But if they're wicked and they turn around, they'll save their life. Obviously, metaphors. This is life and death in the prophetic sense. But because they consider their offenses they've committed and they turn around, they do not die. Keep going. Yet the Israelites say, is the way of the Lord. That's not just. Your way is somehow better? Is it my way or your way that is unjust? Therefore, you Israelites, I will judge each of you according to your own. Think about the relief. I will judge each of you according to your own ways, declares the Lord. Repent. That just means turn around. Turn away from your offenses, and sin won't be your downfall. Rid yourself of all the offenses you've committed. This is the key scripture here. Rid yourself of the offenses you've committed and get a new heart and a new spirit. Why would you die, people of Israel? For I take no pleasure in the death of anyone. Repent, turn around, and live. Now, that is my best effort explaining what happened. Let's spend a few minutes here talking about a more profound question, which is what's happening in us all right now because of what happened. I want to talk slower because this is really important. First, all of us, everybody here, everybody watching at Darwin Life, everybody watching online, every one of us was formed by our history and our heritage and how we were raised. Every one of us, whatever we think is normal, is a function of that. And let me be clear, that is not your fault. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't give them amorous feelings for one another. And let me also say, if you were raised in the ways of life and light, that wasn't to your credit either. We didn't deserve that. Like if you don't do anything after today, if your parents were awesome, at least send them a text and tell them, thank you for helping me start on third base, right? I didn't have to overcome as much as somebody who didn't, okay? That is not your fault, nor was it to your credit. However, empowerment is doing an audit of our family habits and asking what is normal, and then asking a more profound question. Is what I think is normal, does it belong to death or life? And choose to eradicate death and perpetuate life. My father's work ethic needs to go forward. My father's integrity, honesty needs to go forward. My dad's generosity needs to go forward. My dad's prayer discipline needs to go forward. My dad's affection for scaring 6-year-olds needs to die with him. It belongs to death. That belongs back here. Empowerment is auditing our family habits and going, I choose to perpetuate life and never death. Now, let me deal with the elephant in the room and online. In a room this size, and with an internet that big, it's statistically unlikely that there is not at least one of you thinking this. Good one. Great. This is why I hate coming to church on Father's Day. I should have thought of it. It's not Father's Day in Australia, but it is in America, and there's a lot of Americans here. I hate coming to church on Father's Day, Mother's Day. I hate that. Here's why I hate it. Because some dude who I've never met is going to use the Bible to tell me I have to honor my father and mother. They're going to make me feel like crap about it. I hate that. Because here's the thing. If you knew what my dad did to me, if you knew what my mom did to me, you just told the worst stories that you could tell about your father, and they were funny. If I said what my dad did to me, not funny. If I said what my mom did to me, not funny. What do you say to me, bro? Since I'm here, what do you say to me? Okay. A couple thoughts on that. If you please listen to this with an open heart, I promise you I can help you, okay? First, I'm so sorry for whatever happened. I am. It's not okay. Children should not be exposed to adult emotions. So if your parents made you feel their stress, that's not okay. Children don't have a brain for that. It's not okay that children are exposed to adult conflicts. Like if your parents made you choose sides between their arguments, not okay. And especially adult violence. If somebody's 10 times your size beating the crap out of you, that is hopeless, despondent, despair, and that is not okay. Those things belong to death. And I'm so sorry that it happened. However, the hope for your life is to honor your father and mother. Let me explain. Words don't matter. How we picture words working matters. See, to us, if I say honor and you picture pretend it didn't happen, act like it's okay, say really nice things about how they brought me up, that ain't honor. It's not. Honor in Hebrew culture has nothing to do with what you say to somebody and everything to do with how you behave away from them. And you already knew that to be true. I'm a professional. If you're a parent and your 16-year-old says, Dad, I just want you to know I honor you. Well, that would bless your heart. Then you would go, what do you want? Right? But what's more honoring is knowing they live in a way that honors your values out there more than what they say to you to your face. Yeah. Same with your pastors. If you say, Ben, Dan, I just want you to know I honor you. We just love you and appreciate you and honor you. That would bless them, and you should. That's called encouragement, though. That's not honor. Encouragement is what you say to somebody. Honor is living out there in a way that honors the values in here. Honor is how you treat someone away from them, how you live that way. Yeah. See, here's what honor your father and mother is in Hebrew thought. It's taking an audit of the way you were raised, and it's not saying it's okay. It's actually the opposite. It's saying that was death. That was not okay. That does not belong to life and light. That belongs to death and darkness. And then honor is drawing a line in the sand and saying, as for me and my house going forward, we will perpetuate life and eradicate death. And that's the hope for your life, is to not repeat those things. See, people ask me, I travel the world, and I've been asked on occasion, Shane, man, you must come from a long line of educated preachers. No. My great-grandparents were illiterate, all four of them. My great-grandfather made his living moonshining. I know, it's cool. There's an American here going, oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely, yep, 180 proof liquor. Come on. We know what it is, especially from the South. Yep. My grandfather made his living moonshining. He was a member of a racist organization called the Ku Klux Klan. My great-grandfather was an illiterate, moonshining racist. How do you get from illiterate, moonshining racist to a guy with 3 university degrees traveling the world talking about the love of Christ for all cultures everywhere? That by him and through him and for him all things were created, in him all things hold together, male nor female, Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, black nor white, rich nor poor. Are you serious? There's one God holding. How do you get from that to this? Let me tell you, my parents drew a line in the sand and honored. And here's what they said: as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. Our children will read books. Our children will go to school. Our children will learn the presence of Jesus. And our children will not be racist because that's just stupid. And in one generation, they became the hero of the family line. And what better way to honor my great-grandfather than to live like I do now and people assume he was an educated preacher? That's not just the key for your life. If you don't do it for any reason, do it to change your life. But what you'll find is the decision you make to change your life actually becomes the hero of an entire family tree going forward. And here's the thing. Ezekiel says it this way: rid yourself of the offenses and get a new heart and a new spirit. Because see, there's a couple ways to preach this, right? One way is to go, we're going to pray for everybody, and if you need heart healing, we're going to believe that God will heal your heart, right? And I don't guess there's anything wrong with that, but I don't want to deal with all the snot that involves. And can I just be frank with you? Some things you can't be healed from. So let me get this straight. You're going to wait till you're healed from that abuse until you choose to act better? Really? It's pretty disempowering. And that's the power of Ezekiel's point of view. He's like, God's not interested in healing your heart. Come on. God's interested in giving you a brand new one. Why would you wait for a heart healing when you can have a heart transplant? And here's what Ezekiel says: if you empower your life and choose to eradicate death and perpetuate life, the heart transplant is wrapped up in the middle of it. So I challenge you, my brothers and sisters of Desert Life, Darwin Life, and everybody online, may you have the courage to see things different, the irresistible urge to respond to what you see, and may you choose honor and responsibility to empower your life for you, but not just for you, to be the hero of your family tree. Because if you don't, one day, you'll leave it to your children to do. Why would you leave it to them when you can do that now? So Lord, give us the courage to see things different, the irresistible urge to respond to what we see. May we be empowered to live in honor, responsibility, to change our family tree. If you're married, I want you to ask your spouse this afternoon, is there anything we think is normal, but it actually belongs to death? It's a good question. The only reason we're doing it is because our parents did. And may we be empowered to be the hero of our family tree. Would you look this way? Thank you so much. Let me be a part of your day. I hope Jesus got bigger, the cross worked better, the resurrection is central, and scriptures get bigger, not smaller. If you want more information like this, as we said, we have it on our table out there. The only thing I would ask is that if you don't want anything, God bless you. I'll see you next time. If you do, would you please come in the first 10 minutes? I'm not being high maintenance or ridiculous. The last flight of the day, I have to make it. Or you're going to get to know me better. And somebody's going to have to feed me. It's just a mess. So if you would come out there and say hello and do that. I empower you and speak grace and courage. May you all say yes to empowering your life, to eradicating death and perpetuating life. And may the statement, my father ate sour grapes and that's why my teeth are set on edge, may those words never come out of our mouth again. May we live on a higher plane of empowerment than that. See you next time. Grace and peace, everybody.